Hello, Sharon. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Today's guest is Sharon Sayegh. Sharon is an accomplished artist who has had countless exhibitions, publications, and her work has been in permanent collections. Sharon has also received the Bernadette Award from the National Association of Women Artists. And before we start, Sharon, where can people see your work?
They can see it on my website. It's sharonsayegh.com, SharonSayegh. And also on Instagram, my handle is Sayegh Fine Art. I'm also on Facebook, but I'm more active on Instagram. So that's probably the best place to see my current work.
Fantastic. And listeners, connect with Sharon, and I appreciate if you hit the subscribe and like button for our show. So Sharon, I know the importance of family's role in an artist's creative journey. I see your home was filled with many talented artists. Can you talk about your background and how you found your way to becoming an artist?
Yeah, I always self-identified as an artist. And I think if I tell you a little bit about my family, you'll get a sense for why I feel that way. My mom taught French in the high school, and she earned her PhD in Romance languages. So between my father and mother, they spoke maybe 10 different languages, but they were very fluent in 4 languages. And my mom also painted murals because we had like some murals that she had painted in the house, but I'd never seen her pick up a paintbrush. But she was also a ceramicist, and we had a kiln in the garage. But mostly, I think she was a novelist, and she wrote a novel, and she just always wanted to write. She wanted to be a journalist, but she didn't become that. But anyway, she just wrote all the time. And she also had a friend who was an artist in New York. They would come down, and her name is Malka Zeldis, and she became a pretty well-known primitive artist. So she would come down. We lived at the beach, and she would take sand from the beach and mix it in with her oil paints and do paintings and leave them there with us, very textural paintings. But my childhood at home was filled with her artwork, and I think that's where I got my love of primitive art. My father was a landscape architect, and he also had a really nice gift shop on the boardwalk in Atlantic City. And we all worked there. It was like a family business. So I did the displays and the windows and the merchandising, things like that. And he would bring in artists in residence. So one time I remember he brought in Artie, the candlestick maker, and he would set up a big, huge vat of hot wax, and customers would come in, and whatever they wanted, he would sculpt out of these colorful wax, and it would be a candle, and he would give that to them. My sister was interested in photography, so she did a lot of that. And my brother, he played bass guitar, and he was very interested in theater and comedy. So he was always bringing friends into the house, and they would put on skits and shows. And we had a piano, so they would perform. And some of those people he was friends with, they went off and had very successful careers in the entertainment industry. So we also had a lot of animals. We had dogs and cats and chickens and African owls, pheasants, Jacobins. So there was a lot of activity and a lot of the arts in my house. So I think you can see how I would just always self-identify as an artist. I was kind of shy, so I expressed myself visually and through the arts.
That's a very interesting background. And you brought up their animals. And let's talk about your work. Your work has a feel, to me, of a place of wonder and mystery and spiritualism, where you paint nature and specifically animals in this fantasy environment. How did you find your particular art style?
I would say it's really conversations with myself in a way, because I do talk to myself when I'm painting, and I talk to the painting and I'm responding to it. I think I've I've always painted realistically, and I've always been more interested in realism than in abstract art. So, let's see. So I lost my place.
No, and then let me jump in there, because when I'm looking at your work, you could have painted abstract, you could have painted landscapes, figure painting, but your style in particular, it has this, like I said, spirituality with animals merged in and out of your almost fantasy world. Is that just something you have an interest in? Is it because of your upbringing with animals around you? Are you fond of nature? Like, why did you choose this style, you know?
I'm connected with nature, and it's all around me. Right now, like, I live in a forest, and our house is actually situated in one. So the animals in the work are animals that I'm familiar with that are around me. And the ideas come from different places. My work is inspired by really goes on inside me. I kind of see it as an inner portrait, inner self portrait. So it's an expression of my thoughts and my feelings and my experiences. The inspirations come from my life, from politics, just different experiences that I've had.
I want to dive into one of your specific pieces, because I love all your work, but one of my favorite pieces you did is Auspicious Moment in Time. And listeners, I urge you to check out this piece. So this painting is an environment where you have several deers running around. And in the middle of this painting is this woman who has antlers. How do you come up with these types of concepts?
Okay, so I had an accident with a deer. I hit a deer. And
with your car? Obviously, right? With your car?
Yeah, with my car. So I started on this collection of work on unintended consequences. That was sort of a theme running through all the work. So I did a group of these paintings. So this is really, she's the deer. And when I hit the deer, it looked at me and I looked at it. So she's kind of representing what I was seeing, and I'm imagining what the deer was feeling. And that's the look on her face. And I put the setting in, it's kind of like a Persian miniature painting setting. I think that's, my father is from Syria, so I have that Middle Eastern background, and I have an interest in that kind of art, and I think it kind of comes from that. So I created her running and being frightened. That's kind of what I imagined the deer to have felt like.
And not to get too deep into this, but I'm trying to put myself in your shoes. Was that painting a way to help you through such a traumatic, because I can't imagine like hitting a deer, because you can get injured. Clearly the deer got hurt. Is it your way of just kind of dealing with that moment, expressing it outwardly through a painting?
It really helps me a lot to do that. I would have dealt with it, but it was very helpful because in a lot of ways I could commemorate the deer. There's another painting that I did on that. It's called Cohabitation, and it's where I went to really research we share our environment with the deer. And I went and I studied and researched that because the deer seek us out. They live near humans. It's not just us imposing on their environment. There's a symbiotic relationship there, and they do seek out to live where civilization is. So I did another painting that reflected that, and it had a lot of symbols in it where there's a lot of houses in it. They're merging into the deer's neck. And in the center is a deer, half human, half deer, and she's in a wedding dress, which is a symbol for how we're kind of how, like, in a marriage, you have to work together and compromise and get along. And that's sort of symbolic of our relationship with our dear neighbors.
And Sharon, please, after this show, let's gather some of those images. I'd love to showcase those because people that listen to this episode would love to see the visual and the story behind those paintings. Let me transition to this question. I mentioned in the intro, you have won countless awards, been in many publications, and exhibited your work in many places. For you personally, what is the most satisfying and the most proudest accomplishment you have done as an artist?
Well, I think it's really just growing my work and improving it and pushing my boundaries and getting better at it. Because I think growing as an artist is really tied to growing as a person. Really, I don't think there's any accomplishment that can overshadow growing your own work and seeing it get better and improve. And painting is such like an amazing thing to be working with. I mean, there's just it probably would take like 5 lifetimes to really get to understand it and to find out what you can do with it and just to explore it.
And so I was looking at your website, Sharon, and I noticed that you've been a judge on a art exhibition, jury judge. If you are looking at other people's work, what are you particularly looking for? How do you give out like first place, second place, third place ribbons or awards when it is subjective? And now you've, in the lens of being a judge as opposed to an artist, what were you looking at?
Yeah, it was really, really hard to do that because I wanted to take into consideration my personal likes and the type of art that I'm drawn to and the type of art that I do. But I wanted to be really fair to them and to also really seriously consider work that's something I'm not familiar with and I don't do, if it's photography or abstraction or something like that. So I looked for creativity and depending on the type of work it was, but creativity and skill, understanding of their materials. And I think the better pieces combined the creativity and skill, and you didn't have just like skill outweighing the creativity or creativity really outweighing the skill. So those were the kinds of pieces I looked for. And then I also looked at the photography and as best I could, because I'm not that familiar with that medium, and abstraction. And I tried to spread it around and find the best of those, what I thought. But it is an opinion. And if there was another judge there, they would have probably picked other pieces to win. And I think that's something everybody has to keep in mind when they submit work to a show, that it's really just an opinion of one person or however many people are judging it.
Let's go back to your work. For people who love your art and they want to have an original painting from you, what's the best way they can get one? Is it a commission piece? Is there an online store? Do they just hit you up directly through your social media sites? How does that done?
Yeah, through my social media sites are fine. They can reach out to me through my website. I have work on Saatchi Art. I've sold through there. And I'm in an artist group. It's called Poets Artists. And I show with them often. It's a wonderful group. It's an internet art tribe. And it's a group of artists, poets, curators, collectors, museums, galleries, publishers, and basically their interest is promoting realist figurative art. And they have a Patreon site. So I joined because they had such great artists, a lot of them that I really admire, and wanted to be able to show my work with them. So I joined that and I've submitted to their shows. I've gotten in some of their shows. So I exhibit through there and other places. There's art fairs and things like that.
Fantastic. And Sharon, we're coming to the end here, and I just have several more questions for you. What experience in the past has greatly influenced your art that we see today?
I can't say there's any one experience that influenced my work. I mean, I can tell you now, since the pandemic, I started to do some online courses just to connect with other artists. And I'm doing a mentorship program with Edward Povey. And there was one thing he had us do, which we had to make a like a plus and a minus column and put in the plus column all the things we like and in the minus column things that we don't like. And one thing I realize is that I don't like politics, and a lot of my work has been inspired by politics. So I realize I want to change the direction of my work. I want to do more things from the plus column and things that I like. So I think my work's going to change a lot. It's going to be more consistent. So that's going to change the direction of my work. But I can't really say what any one thing in my past that stands out to me.
No, that's great. And we look forward to this new style that's about to blossom here. I hope this next question isn't too closely related to the first one, but what do you know now that you wish you knew then as a young artist?
I wish I had gone into art right away. I had some diversions and, I wasn't sure how I was going to make a living. And I had a lot of other jobs. I was a private investigator. I thought I would go into physical therapy. So I got all this science background. And so I did a lot of other things. And then I came back to art. And I think I wished I had just done what I loved from the beginning and really worked hard at it. But it all goes into making you who you are. And that's what your art is about. It's who you are. So any of those experiences, they all add to it, to the richness of the work.
Gotcha. And Sharon, finally, you can answer this either, what would your legacy be when you're done doing art? Or personally, how do you define success?
I think success for me is just, I feel like I'd like to have a more commercial success, but really success for me is just being able to make the work and to work at it every day to make it better. So I feel like successful because I have that opportunity to do this.
Sharon, thank you for sharing with us your awesome creative journey. And finally, where can people connect with you again?
Through my website or Instagram. It's Sayegh Fine Art or SharonSayegh.com. That's my website.
Fantastic. Listeners, make sure you connect with her. And until next time, everyone take care and bye.